Silksong is a wonderful game. The music in it is wonderful, the artwork is astounding, and the gameplay is top-notch. It actually is an upgraded version of the first game, Hollow Knight. Comparatively, the map is bigger, there are more boss fights, and there are a lot more details in the game compared to the first one. However, just because Silksong is a sequel doesn't make Hornet stronger than the Knight. There are a lot of people who are debating who's stronger, so I thought that I'd compare the two characters instead of blindly picking a winner. And what better way to do that than to go step by step, breaking everything down about them individually. And since there's a lot to go over, I'm going to be breaking their feats down into 7 parts. But keep in mind, I am doing a comparison between the two playable characters. When it comes to the lore, the Knight absolutely wrecks Hornet in any given possible situation. With that in mind, let's hop right into it. First off, we have to compare the tools and charms between the two games. In Silksong, Hornet owns a total of 57 tools by the end of the game. They are categorized by color, red meaning offensive tools which directly helps her with combat, and they require shell shards to be made, making them a bit expensive. Then there are blue tools. These are combat enhancement tools, meaning that they help Hornet with combat but don't usually do anything by themselves, except one of them because it wanted to feel better about itself when compared to the other tools. And even so, this one isn't free and requires silk to be used. Then there are the yellow tools. These are mostly utilities that help Hornet navigate throughout the map. Except these two because, well, I don't know, to be honest. Hornet is very skilled with her tools, some of them even allowing her to change her shape, turning herself into a literal Moving on to Hollow Knight, the little ghost owns a total of 40 tools or charms by the end of the game. But instead of being filtered by color, you can use any charm put together. The only requirement is that you need to have enough charm notches because in this game, some of the charms are expensive and are not equal to each other by any means. You can also overcharm in the game, using the last slot of notches to equip any charm of your choice at the price of taking double damage. So if you're skilled enough, you can practically have any build you want. And now for the comparison. I think Silksong's builds are extremely broken, allowing you to do some crazy damage with just tools using some of their quests. Not to mention, every charm Hollow Knight has, Silksong has a better version of it. Except, well, a few exceptions. But those exceptions add up. Sure, the little knight has less charms and some of them are completely useless, but some of them are completely broken. So my take on this is that Silksong's tools are a jack of all trades because you can mostly spam some of the same broken tools with the same crest and get away with it doing very less in just about any boss fight, and skip literally almost any phase if you wanted to. But Hollow Knight's charms are a bit more specific. One build would never be good enough for more than a few bosses. Some bosses require different charms depending on your playstyle, so it's a bit more skill and preference based. But I'm going to have to give this W to Hornet, simply because her abilities are just better. Sure, the little knight has quick slash and unbreakable strength, but Hornet has 4 angry boys and hollow purple, ready to decimate absolutely anything in her way. Moving on to the second genre, we have the nail damage. The little knight starts off with an old nail, and it does a measly 5 damage. However, you can upgrade your nail 4 times throughout the game, and each upgrade increases your damage by 4, leaving you with a final base damage of 21. In Silksong, however, Hornet starts off with a nail given to her by Vespa, the queen of the hive. You can actually see the nail having a hive-like pattern if you look closely. The base nail also does 5 damage. Wait, what the fuck? So you're telling me that an old nail and a nail given to you by a warrior queen does the same damage? Alright, I'm not getting into this. However, Hornet can increase her nail damage by 50% when she challenges her opponents. I mean, yeah, the knight has unbreakable strength to do that, but it's kind of expensive for 3 charm notches. Also, Hornet's challenge invitation and her barbed bracelet stack, giving her more damage. But, yes, there is a but, we are not taking extra accessories into account since it's a different genre, and it is pretty difficult to always challenge your opponent before a nail strike, making it kind of unreliable unless the opponent is staggered. I am in a bit of a tight spot here, having to make an impossible decision between 2 equally powered individuals. But then I realized the obvious option here. The knight does 5 damage with a broken old nail, while Hornet does the same damage with a needle made by royalty, which means even though our little baby is smaller, he also hits a lot harder. I just have to give the W to the little knight here. Moving on, we have the movement tech. Alright, there's a lot to cover here. Starting off with Silksong, there are a lot of upgrades Hornet learns. First, she receives the dash, which also doubles up by allowing her to sprint. I didn't know she could sprint until some of you guys pointed it out 20 hours into my game. Yeah, afterwards in Farfield, she speaks to this wonderful lady that upgrades her cloak for her, who also sees her... Ha, caught you lacking. I would never goon for Hornet, that's below me. But Grandmother Silk can put a collar on. Hornet soon receives her wall climb after defeating Sister Splinter. It's just the basic wall climb, but she can also do this weird vertical parkour jump, allowing you to get away from some specific tight situations. Also, I don't know if this counts, but a tool can straight up allow her to cling to the wall. forever. This was a mod concept made as a joke as an ability upgrade in Hollow Knight, and they added it in the game. She then receives her harpoon to cover a lot of horizontal ground mid-air. The best part about it, you can spam it if you have enough silk, and this even doubles up as an attack which does 24 damage, 3 more damage than the final nail. You can also use it to pogo off of spikes, and it's particularly useful for some specific bosses as well. Later on, after you go through Path of Pain Light, she also receives the double jump. God, how many abilities does this woman have? Alright, hopefully this is the final one. Later on in Act 3, Hornet learns the Silksong, allowing her to cover vertical ground very quickly. It's insane how useful this is in some areas. Alright, now, again, I don't know if this counts. She can use this tool to shoot backwards and walk like an actual goofy spider, which, hey, I thought was pretty cool. Wow, that was a long list. Moving on to Hollow Knight, our little ghost first receives the dash. It's a pretty simple and effective dash, but you can't run with it though. Soon after, he receives the wall climb. No vertical movement, I'm afraid, but it gets the job done. Then he receives one of the nicest movement abilities ever, and it's the crystal dash. It's basically the Silksong, but sideways, and it just shoots the knight through one end of the room and out the other. This has saved me so much of my time playing Hollow Knight, I can't even explain it. Then he receives the monarch wings, basically the double jump in the abyss, and at the very end he receives the shade cloak. The Shade Cloak, oh my god, it is probably the best ability that Little Knight has. It is so convenient for just about any boss fight that I can think of. Alright, now if you've played both the games, the first thing you'll notice is how different some of these abilities are, even though they're the same. The dash Hornet uses sends her downwards at a small angle, and the range of the dash is extremely small. The Knight, however, dashes at a straight linear line and covers more ground. The double jump in Silksong feels a bit raggedy, a lot less smooth. It also boosts the character a small height upwards compared to the Monarch wings, because the wings not only grant you more height, but they also feel nicer. Silksong and Crystal Dash are just similar but different. However, neither really has any direct correlation to combat, and it just helps with platforming, to be honest. Everything else these two characters have are unique to themselves. Now, if I had to give a point to one of them, it would definitely be Hornet. That harpoon can still be countered using the Shade Cloak, but Hornet can run, vertical jump on walls, and turn into a hot air balloon when she needs to. So it's kind of a lot of extra abilities that outweighs the Knight. Moving on to Health and Soul, in Hollow Knight there are a total of 16 mask shards for our little Knight. 4 shards add 1 mask, and collecting 16 brings his total masks up to 9. He requires 3 soul vessel fragments for 1 extra tank. There are 9 fragments and 3 total tanks, effectively doubling his soul holding capability. 3 nail strikes allow him to use his spell or enable a single heal. In Hollow Knight Silksong, there are 20 mask shards, 4 for 1 extra mask, adding up to a total of 10 masks, and there are 18 fragments of silk spools scattered around in Silksong, 2 required for 1 extra silk strand, and collecting all of them doubles the silk spool just like Hollow Knight. However, Hornet takes double damage from literally everybody. She even takes triple damage from Lace and Grandmother Silk, which is insane. So is her 10 masks of health really 10 masks? Also 18 spools? Silksong had me fooled thinking that they're gonna require less exploring because needing 2 shards is better than 3, right? Nope, they gave you a puny amount of extension and looking for them was a pain in my butt. Regardless of my whining, it doesn't affect the outcome. Now, let's talk about something a bit less discussed about. Blue Blood. In Silksong, we hear that it's extremely addictive, and Hornet can overdose on it by a measly amount, making her immortal. Our Knight though... yeah. This makes sense as our little ghost is a hollow vessel made to contain the infection, so a little bit of goody-goody is nothing to him. Needless to say, our little Knight takes the point here easily. Spells. In Silksong, there are 6 spells Hornet learns to use, 2 of which you see in the original game being the Silk Spear and the Threat Storm. But she has more. This involves the Cross Stitch, which is a very dangerous parry, Sharp Dart, which is a very buffed up version of the Sharp Shadow, Rune Rage, basically nuking your enemies, and Pale Nails, which are homing missiles. She can only equip one of these nails unless you're using the Shaman Crest. She requires 4 Silk Strands to enable a single spell. In Hollow Knight, there are 3 spells, all of which get upgraded by the end of the game. The Abyss Shriek, the Descending Dark, and the Shade Soul. You can use all 3 without equipping anything extra. On paper, the Knight is stronger here, right? Because, well, he requires less soul, and he can equip every spell. Well, yes and no. In Hollow Knight, the spells have their own unique damage, making them insanely good at early game. In Silksong, Hornet's skill damages increase with nail upgrades, making it better for late game. Also, the little guy does 80 damage with the Abyss Shriek, his hardest hitting spell, but Hornet's Threat Storm without anything else equipped does 116 damage if every tick lands. With the Shaman Crest, of course, it's gonna be higher, but I'm going to go with the default one because the crest deserves its own spot. And even though it costs 1 extra nail hit to cast a spell in Silksong, Hornet regenerates her own silk up to 3 threads to make up for it. This one's a bit trickier to score because one is harder to land but does more damage, and the other is easier to land but does a bit less damage. This one was also a difficult decision to make, but I ended up giving the doublet to the little knight because 3 different spells open up a lot of different maneuvering options, even if the damage is a little less than Hornet's. Skills. Our little knight learns 3 types of nail art from 3 different nail masters. The Great Slash doing 2.5 times the regular nail damage, the Cyclone Slash doing 1.25 times the nail damage per hit, having 6 nail hits in total, and the Dash Slash, also doing 2.5 times the damage but with incredible range. He also has the Dream Nail, letting him dip in and out of reality, and also teleport to certain places he's already been in. Moving on to Silksong, Hornet has 1 type of charged nail attack, allowing her to deal 58 damage, which is 2.8 times the normal damage. Of course, this varies from crest to crest, but this is the default crest. I tried going for a running attack, but the damage was sadly the same. But one concept that is entirely new in Silksong are the crests. This new combat mechanic invites an entirely new style of combat, allowing you to choose your preference. Point just has to go to Hornet here since the little knight just does not have any other adaptive abilities. Lore. Now that we've gotten past our basic comparisons, it's time to hop into the lore. Hornet is a child that is part worm and part weaver. One of her parents, the Pale King, was a god, and Hera was just an ordinary weaver, making Hornet a demigod with a very long lifespan. She is extremely skilled, being taught by Queen Vespa and learning every ability and combat skill she can and mastering them. She is also incredibly strong and intelligent. She engineers cogflies in the Citadel all by herself, and even if there are blueprints, it takes knowledge to be able to create something like that. The little knight, however, is the child of the Pale King and the White Lady, a god and the higher being, automatically making our knight equal or stronger than Hornet. It would still be debatable, but our knight needs to be taken a step further because he's born of void. He's the perfect empty shell of a vessel, being a literal sponge when it comes to learning combat. He grew up in a place where nothing makes it out alive, escaped it, and conquered it. He has no feelings and no bias. Hornet is extremely skilled. She learned all of her abilities through hard work and dedication, but the knight is a talented machine built for the sole purpose of combat and restraining the radiance. Finally, at the end of the video, we can conclude that the knight is a tad bit more skilled over Hornet. He beat her twice canonically as well, and to be honest, I'm not surprised. Hornet is fast and skilled, and she's got a soft side because of her mortality. She has feelings and opinions, but the knight just exists to be a weapon. If you liked this video, then watch some of these as well. Also, consider subscribing cause there's gonna be more videos like this, and you don't wanna miss out.